Technology is one of the key pillar where every industry is being refactored.
Advait, you have been part of the entire startup ecosystem for over a decade. You have been part of our journey from day one. How do you think the startup ecosystem has evolved in the last decade, and how is the startup ecosystem in the UAE?
So when startup was a small part of the economy, uh, it was not contributing anything to the economy, which was from the technology perspective, from the purpose perspective. But over a decade, there were multiple shifts which has been happened. And within this decade, we also experienced a COVID, where there was another shift, and that shift was happening where the whole financial modeling of the startups, the intent, the purpose has been absolutely changed. So if I take it back from the 2010, 2011, the objectives of the startups was totally different compared to what they are evolving now. Right now, they are way matured. The way matured is that their value creation is actually evolving on, if I had to explain this in an analogy of a stool of with three legs. One, capital is very relevant for the startups. Without capital, you are irrelevant. Second is the knowledge, the market knowledge, which every startup needs to thrive on. And third is the network. The network of right people is something which is very important. And now if you think about this, simultaneously the three legs for that stool needs to be very much balanced, identical in order to progress further. Coming back to UAE, UAE is something is actually tapping on all these three key areas: the knowledge, the capital, and the network. And that's where even Startup Middle is where I'm actually getting from day one involved. It's actually enabling for all the startups with these three key legs, and that stool is actually very stable, where you can see how that is contributing to the global economy as well as the UAE economy.
Interestingly, you mentioned about value creation. Every startup needs to have a business purpose. Now, how do you think, creating a value proposition for in line aligned with the business purpose works for startup?
Right. So think about it. What is the value proposition? Value proposition is a promise which you are offering why your product or services to the customers. Now, when you started creating that value creation, either for any business or in an organization, it is completely define the purpose, why it is being, why it's actually clearly defined, to whom it is going to cater, it's properly defined, why it is created, it is also defined, and third is actually it's mentioned it's sustainable. So once the value is actually recognized, it is very important to keep that value, rethink over a period of time so it doesn't shrink it whenever the economic conditions actually changes over time.
In this journey of creating value, when is the right time for startups to raise capital?
Yeah. So I mentioned without capital you are irrelevant. With capital you are powerful. But think about it that when the capital is in good hands, you actually spend it into a right time at right activity or a specific event. But the startups where these are having a pattern where they are asking that even after the series A immediately they are launching for series B, it's probably not right. So the capital location, where I have been actually quite vocal in my network, that capital location should be happen at the right time, and the investors who are thinking from that perspective, it's particularly to only for the right startups by looking at their patterns of the series of the history what they have been invested before.
Now, in terms of you have been a leader in the technology space, how do you see the technology value chain would change or impact the world order?
Uh, so So if I had to measure the GDP of a country, technology is one of the key pillar where every industry is being refactored. You talk about healthcare, you talk about education, you talk about oil and gas, anything. There is no industry where the technology is not actually being infused, right? So you go to the organization, technology is there. You go to every business functions or the departments of any organization, technology is there. So that technology value chain is a sequence of activities which is scattered across all the organizations level, right? So from the top until the bottom, and that value chain is a continuous cycle, and you need to rethink over every 3 years that or 5 years that how exactly this technology value chain is gonna contribute to my business, how it's benefiting to my business.